wrist in September, and Fred Lynn, Rookie of the Year and the American League's most valuable player. In the playoffs, the Red Sox took on an Oakland team that had won 3 straight World Series and pulled off a 3-game sweep of their own. A different tune was being played in Cincinnati, where the Reds won their division by 20 games behind the speed of National League MVP Joe Morgan and the solid leadership of catcher Johnny Bench. Tony Perez added a touch of class to the Big Red Machine, while manager Sparky Anderson provided a measure of relief practically every game. Captain Hook, they called him, captain of a bullpen that rarely sat down. But no man better epitomized the Reds than Pete Rose. In the playoffs, the Reds swept the Pirates 3 straight, and it was on to Fenway.
Welcome to Game 1 of the 1975 World Series. The National League champs, the Cincinnati Reds, versus the American League champs, the Boston Red Sox. 2 superb ball clubs that had great seasons. The Red Sox are the underdogs. They've been all year. The Reds know if the Red Sox play against the Cincinnati team the way they did against the A's, it's going to be a stirring and a very tough series.
Tiant was masterful in Game 1, pitching for the first time as a pro in front of his dad.
That first game, the Reds came into the series big favorites, and he walked out and he just completely shut them down and stunned the Reds the way he pitched, and he made it evident that the Red Sox were going to make this a really tough series.
Crowd on its feet here at Fenway on an overcast, raw day. And Petrocelli gloves it. A throw in time. And the Red Sox have drawn first blood in the 1975 World Series.
The second game, the Reds came from behind to win in the 9th inning. And then the third game, there was all the brouhaha over the interference.
With the game tied at 5 in the 10th, Ed Armbrister bunted and got tangled with Fisk on the play. The umpires said no interference. Red Sox manager Darrell Johnson felt otherwise.
The man ran into him with a thing. He was interfering, and you went to call it. You tell me what you were calling, and what he did. On a play like that, I'm telling you, the man interfered with that man on a play.
The runners advanced, and 2 batters later, Joe Morgan singled to give the Reds a controversial 6-5 victory and a 2-1 lead in the World Series. Still in Cincinnati for Game 4, Tiant returned with a vengeance, but needed a 9th inning miracle catch by Lynn to preserve the 5-4 win. Sparky seemed unfazed, and for good reason, as the next night Perez snapped an 0-for-15 slump with 2 home runs, as the Reds took a 3-2 series lead and set the stage for one of baseball's greatest games. It was almost as if God himself decreed a dramatic pause prior to Game 6 in the form of a steady downpour that delayed the game for 3 straight days.
It just kept postponing it and building up, and people were anticipating so much. This was the first great television World Series, and people have been built up waiting for the game to be played, and so it made for, I believe, the largest audience ever at the time. But what it did do was it set up the situation where the Red Sox could come back with Tiant in the 6th game. And I think it led to greater drama, as it turned out.
With 2 wins already to his credit, the old man parted the Red Sea with no problem in the top of the 1st. Then, with 2 men on in the bottom half, Fred Lynn.
Yastrzemski's at second, Fisk at first, 2 down, bottom of the 1st inning. And there's a high fly ball deep to right field. Going back, Griffey, forget it. It's gone.
The Reds trailed by 3, but then they had trailed in every game of the series. And come the 5th, they began a comeback that almost cost Boston more than just the lead.
And a fly ball deep to center field. Lynn going way back, and he can't make the play. It's off the wall. Evans will recover, and Lynn is not up. He has been shaken up. 1 run comes in. Here comes Rose with the 2nd run, and Freddie Lynn is hurt. And I've never heard Fenway Park as silent as it is right now.
A kind of hush enveloped Fenway as the damage to Lynn was assessed. Shaken and bruised, but able to continue, the fans' attention returned to Griffey, whose triple had closed the gap, and Bench, whose single tied it at 3. Then in the 7th inning, with 2 men on, the resurgent Reds took the lead, courtesy of George Foster.
Straight away center field. Lynn is going back. That ball is off the wall. 1 run is in. Here comes Morgan. He'll score, and the Cincinnati Reds lead 5-3.
The series appeared to be slipping away from Darrell Johnson's Red Sox, as in the 8th, Cesar Geronimo made it 6-3.
Well hit right field. That ball, if it's fair, she's gone. It is a fair ball. Home run for Geronimo. And Cincinnati getting a little bit closer to a World Championship. The Reds just 6 outs away.
But in the bottom of the 8th, Lynn beat out a single off Pedro Bourbon's leg. And Rico Petrocelli followed with a walk. Captain Hook had seen enough and turned to Raleigh Eastwick, who after getting 2 out, faced the rebellious former Red, Bernie Carbo.
Carbo came up to pinch hit, and he had hit a home run in the 3rd game of the series, which had some dramatic effect. And Carbo was one of those players who could go into tremendous slumps at times, but he had a real penchant for the dramatic. And he came up, and with 2 strikes, he fouled off a ball that was the worst swing I think I've ever seen.
Bench was setting me up slider, and through the 3-2 count, I just fouled off a pitch, which was probably the worst swing in baseball.
I can remember something in back of me in the press box saying, there's no chance that he'll get a hit.
But no chance translates into destiny in one of baseball's greatest games.
Deep center field, way back. We're tied up.
I was flying around those bases, and when I got to 3rd base, I yelled at Pete Rose and says, Pete, don't you wish you were this strong, Pete? Pete, don't you wish you were this strong? And Pete looks at me and he says, this is fun. This is what it's all about.
That was a great home run. I was on first base, and he took 2 bad swings. And then finally, the 3rd one he caught and hit it to center field. And as soon as he hit it, you know it was going to go out. And boy, the chills running around the bases, the chills going up and down my spine was just a thrill to see that, to be a part of it.
The chills were just beginning, for in the bottom of the 9th, Fred Lynn's hope, with the bases loaded and nobody out, turned into George Foster's glory.
High fly ball, left field. Foster's got a shot. Here comes the throw. It is in time. Doyle is out. Foster to bench. A double play.
Denny Doyle was tagged up on 3rd, and Don Zimmer was the 3rd base coach. And Zimmer yelled, no, no. And Doyle thought he said, go, go. So Doyle took off. George Foster threw him out at the plate. They got the final out of the inning, and we went on to the 10th inning.
And on to the 11th, where the Red Sox this time made the defensive plays. First by Carlton Fisk. Then in unbelievably clutch fashion, Dwight Evans.
Well hit, right field, deep. Evans is going back near the wall, and oh, what a catch he made! What a catch by Dwight Evans, and it's a double play.
Time for the 12th, and the hit that forever changed the way we view the game. And so, with millions of fans enraptured by the drama, Game 6 moved into the 12th.
Both managers are pulling out all the stops, and Rick Wise who has not relieved in a game all season long, is coming in. He is the 4th Red Sox pitcher and the 12th pitcher to appear in this game, which is a new World Series record.
Wise had to face the heart of Cincinnati's order, but the Red Sox continued to come up big.
Popped up to the right side. Fisk going after it, and Pudge makes the catch and sits down.
But then Wise ran into trouble as Perez singled up the middle. Then Foster blooped one into left. The tension mounted as Concepcion flied to right. 2 were on and 2 were out when Cesar Geronimo first answered the call to be a hero, then unwisely watched the chance pass him by.
In there, called strike 3, right down the pipe, and Wise strikes out Geronimo.
It was like a heavyweight fight. Everybody just staggered everybody else. One heavyweight knocked the other one down. The other one got up. Then it looked like for sure that it was over. And it was back and forth, back and forth.
Until, that is, the bottom of the 12th, when Carlton Fisk assumed his place in baseball history.
Here's Fisk, and the wind blowing out. We've had 3 homers tonight, all to right field or center field. Carbos was to dead center. The other 2 to right. There's the ball. 6 runs, 14 hits, no errors for Cincinnati. 6 runs, 9 hits, 1 error for Boston. There it goes, a long drive. If it stays fair, home run.
There was a very romantic celebration. The organist was playing the Hallelujah Chorus on the organ, which I thought was very nice. People were so excited, they didn't go out and run out on the field and tear up anything. There were people that went out on the field, but it was only in terms of a very positive celebration.
What a World Series, Joe Garagiola, have we seen here between these 2 clubs. It's fitting that we have a 7th game, you know.
It had to go to the 7th game, and they are just dancing in the streets here. I tell you, one of the more dramatic home runs in World Series history.
All right, right now, let's go down to the field. Tony Kubek.
All right, you can hear the cheers. It's for the man to my left, Pudge Fisk. And Carlton, this has been a dramatic World Series. The 6th game, topped off by your home run. It's some fantastic feeling for you, I'm sure.
Well, probably had to be one of the best played, not only World Series game, but the best played game that has been seen in a long time. We were down 6-3, and of course Bernie Carbo picked us up. Had a great effort from everybody on our pitching staff. I just happened to get a ball. I didn't know what was going to be fair or foul. I knew if it was fair, it was out of here.
I'll let you go handle your press conference, and congratulations on, well, a dramatic home run, one that'll go down in the history of baseball.
Thank you very much.
Fisk had to come back out because to go to the interview room, he had to go from the Red Sox dugout on the first base side and go around and run around the outfield to get to the interview room, which was in the far left-hand corner. So they had to go through this sort of victory lap after the game, and everyone was still up, standing up and singing. It was really a rather remarkable sight. It was as if the hero got to parade through the square one more time.
Going to the bus that night, Rose came up and tapped me on the shoulder. I was walking up. He said, "Wasn't that the greatest game you have ever been in?" I told him, "Peter Edward, you are crazy." I said, "That game there you call the greatest game we've lost." And I said, "And I'm not going to sleep tonight." And you say that's the greatest game. He said, "Look, we'll win tomorrow. But that was the best game I've ever played in."
NBC's coverage of Fisk's dramatic denouement forever changed the way baseball would be presented on TV.
Later, we were to learn what the viewing audience had seen, which was the camera fixed on Fisk and him dancing down the first baseline. And that was one of the great moments in World Series history. NBC has always shown that Fisk home run ever since in every promo of every World Series it's done. And it was the first time national television really ever caught the drama the way it came about. First time 70 million people ever saw the drama like that. Television realized that baseball could really be done well.
It's called the reaction shot and can be traced to director Harry Coyle and friends.
People tell me, and I've read, that even till today it's considered one of the most memorable and best shots in sports history. But there's a great story behind it. The camera that got that shot, was shooting inside the scoreboard, and he was on Fisk. But there was another thing involved, because sitting about 2 feet to the right of this cameraman inside the scoreboard was a rat. And Lou, the cameraman, had one eye on the rat and one eye on the viewfinder, and he couldn't tell, really, if the ball was coming at him or not. So he went with Fisk, and we got the great shot.
It's a lovely October night, a full moon hanging over Boston as the championship of baseball will be decided here. Game 7 of the World Series. The National League champs, the Cincinnati Reds, against the American League champs, the Boston Red Sox.
Although the 7th game of the 75 series was destined for bridesmaid status, for 24 hours, the old guard of Boston had the opportunity to dream.
People walked around in the days just waiting for the 7th game. I don't think anyone actually thought the Red Sox could possibly lose because of the way they came back and with Bill Lee pitching. I think there was this idea that, I mean, after all, it has been since 1918, still is, that somehow this series was meant to be.
The Red Sox tried to oblige as Yastrzemski's single keyed a 3-run third for Boston. But even with Bill Lee on the mound, Boston knew just how fleeting 3-run leads could be against the Cincinnati machine. And in the 6th, the venerable Tony Perez took a slow-mo changeup from the spaceman and launched it.
There's his blooper pitch. There it is. A high drive. He was waiting for that one. That one is gone over everything. Perez timed that blooper pitch and slammed it over the screen out on the Lansdowne Street, and now we have another 1-run ball game in this World Series.
I think he do me a favor because he was dominating with that sinker away from me, and I was looking for something I can drive, with 3-0 game, and he did make a mistake. Plus, I told Sparky Anderson before they came up, with 2 men going on, I'm going to hit a home run. I was confident I'm going to hit a home run, and I think he did me a favor to throw me that pitch because I see it before.
The Reds tied it in the 7th. Then in the 9th, Joe Morgan.
There's a looper. May drop. It's in for a hit. Here comes a throw to third. Rose hits the dirt. He's safe. And there goes Morgan down to second. And the Reds have the lead 4-3.
With 2 out, Boston had one last shot resting squarely on the shoulders of Yastrzemski.
Should be all over. Geronimo's under it. And Cincinnati has won the World Championship, beating the Boston Red Sox 4-3.
Cincinnati had prevailed, but in retrospect, it wasn't the series that was remembered with such passion. It was Game 6.
The 6th game of the 75 World Series was probably the best game overall that's ever been played in the World Series, and I think the guy named Pete Rose mentioned it the best. There wasn't a loser today. The winner was baseball in itself, because we put baseball right back on the map.
The way that Bernie Carbow's home run tied up a ball game, and the way that Carlton Fisk hit the home run to win that 6th game to make Game 7 possible. People got caught up in that, and certainly the news media it makes it exciting also, is what they write and what they show and all the things that you see. And I think you and I both know to this day, many times on ESPN or another program, we see shots of that World Series of 1975, and certainly it keeps it fresh in my mind, at least, because I see it all the time.
I think it came at a good time because baseball at that time was a little bit down, and it needed something, it needed a little spark. And ever since then, every year has been a new attendance record set, and more people come out to see baseball than ever before. And I think that series helped a great deal.
Eddie Casco took me up to meet Mr. Yaki. I had never met him. He took me up to his office, and I told him, Mr. Yaki, I won't come up after, whether if you win it, I won't call you or see you, but I want to now tell you this. no matter who wins the 7th game, nobody's a winner. Baseball's a winner. I said, this series was done so well and so right, and you people were so good about it, that this series has no winner except baseball.
And when all the formalities had been put to rest, and Fenway Park once again became the playground of frustration, the memories of Game 6 lingered indelibly as one of baseball's greatest games.
You are so beautiful. To me, can't you see? You're everything I hope for. Everything I need. You are so beautiful.
This is Warner Fussell.